This is KCBD News Channel 11 at 10.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us.
In a Lubbock courtroom today, the state of Texas turned to the events after the deadly shooting of Texas Tech police officer Floyd East Jr. Along with gruesome photos of East's body, the court saw video of his confessed executioner as he was arrested, interviewed, and taken to jail.
KCBD News Channel 11's Case Wilbanks joins us with that evidence and what it reveals. Case?
Karen and Abner, it's evidence the state hopes will give jurors insight into Hollis Daniels' mental state on October 9th, 2017. We now know his motives, that he at least confesses inside the police department, and comments he makes to police like, quote, "Yeah, I shot your friend." An LPD officer on the witness stand says they carried Hollis Daniels because he refused to walk after his arrest, after shooting Floyd East Jr. in the head, seconds after Daniels asked East about his family. That family was brought to tears again Thursday as a forensic investigator described photos of the wound, blood spatter, and crime scene to the jury. Daniels was taken to the Lubbock Police Department with a spit mask over his face, where it was removed before speaking to homicide detective Bonds, who testified again today. In video from the interview, Daniels tells investigators he, quote, did something illogical before asking to call his parents. He speaks to his dad, who asks, why would you do something like that? To which Daniels says, I don't know, it doesn't make sense. More video shows Daniels waiting for transport to jail, where he tells officers, why don't y'all just kill me and say it was an accident? He's again able to call his dad, worried about getting kicked out of school, saying, I shouldn't have done this anyway. I'm stupid. Later asking his dad about information on him on social media and the news, to which Daniels later says, that's kind of cool. After the call, Daniels tells officers, that's my first killing ever. I don't know how I feel about it. Later saying, I regret the last thing I asked him, if he had any kids. That will stay with me for the rest of my life. And asks, what was his name? He later says, quote, my mentality at the time is I had a gun on me, and they said I had weed on me. Quote, I'll probably be doing this until the day I die, not killing cops. Daniels is later told he's charged with capital murder and has a $5 million bond. The officer transporting him to jail says when he saw the camera, he asked if he would be famous. The defense pressed the officer on Daniels', quote, irrational thinking, to which the officer says Daniels was asking, quote, odd questions. The homicide detective testified through state questioning that Daniels had no indication of being under the influence. The state asked the detective to confirm for the jury that jail booking information showed Daniels showed no signs of mental illness, signs of self-harm, no suicidal ideations, and told evaluators that, quote, he is more aware of reality than others. That detective also showed the jury the murder weapon, explaining how Daniels had to rack the firearm before shooting Officer East. Now, before recessing this evening, the state passed that witness, the homicide detective, and defense attorneys told the judge their cross-examination would be lengthy, and we'll be back in court when it's back in session at 9 in the morning. Karen?
Thank you, Case.